There is a strange truth that most people never discover until it is too late. The moment you stop chasing, stop explaining, stop proving your worth, and stop fighting to remain in someone's life, everything changes. The balance of power shifts. The noise disappears. The masks begin to fall. And suddenly, people are forced to confront something they never expected, the possibility of losing you. Most human beings live with the unconscious assumption that certain people will always remain available. They assume that your patience is endless, your forgiveness is automatic, and your presence is guaranteed. Because of this assumption, they become careless. They stop appreciating your value. They begin to take your kindness for weakness and your loyalty for dependency. The Stoics understood this aspect of human nature thousands of years ago. They knew that people rarely recognize the worth of something while they possess it. Instead, value becomes visible when absence creates a void. What was once ignored suddenly becomes precious. What was once taken for granted becomes impossible to replace. But Stoicism does not teach this lesson as a strategy of manipulation. It is not about making others suffer. It is not about revenge. It is about understanding a deeper reality. You do not belong to anyone. Your peace, your dignity, and your purpose are not dependent upon another person's approval. The moment you realize this, you stop living as a prisoner of other people's expectations. Marcus Aurelius spent much of his life surrounded by people who wanted something from him. Some wanted power. Some wanted recognition. Some wanted access to his influence. Yet despite ruling one of the most powerful empires in history, he constantly reminded himself that external validation was fleeting. The opinions of others changed like the weather. One day they praised you. The next day they criticized you. To build your identity upon their judgment was to build your house upon sand. This is why the dangerous power of letting people lose you begins with a radical shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "How do I keep them?" you begin asking, "Why am I afraid of losing someone who does not truly value me?" That question alone has the power to transform a life. Because fear is often the chain that keeps people trapped in unhealthy relationships, toxic friendships, and one-sided commitments. Fear whispers that you must tolerate disrespect. Fear convinces you that loneliness is worse than mistreatment. Fear tells you that being abandoned is the greatest tragedy. But the Stoics saw things differently. To the Stoic mind, the greatest tragedy was never losing another person. The greatest tragedy was losing yourself while trying to keep them. Think about how many people spend years sacrificing their principles in exchange for acceptance. They silence their opinions to avoid conflict. They suppress their ambitions to make others comfortable. They tolerate behavior that wounds their spirit because they fear rejection more than self-betrayal. Over time, this creates an invisible prison. The walls are not built by other people. They are built by your own attachment. Every desperate attempt to hold on tightens the chains. Every act of self-abandonment weakens your character. Every compromise made against your deepest values erodes your inner strength. Epictetus taught that freedom begins the moment you stop demanding that external things remain under your control. People will come and go. Feelings will change. Relationships will evolve. Circumstances will shift without warning. These realities belong to the world, not to you. What belongs to you is your response. This is the foundation of the Stoic principle known as the dichotomy of control. Your thoughts are yours. Your actions are yours. Your character is yours. But another person's loyalty, affection, gratitude, or understanding are never fully yours to command. When you truly absorb this principle, something remarkable happens. You stop clinging. You stop exhausting yourself trying to convince people of your value. You stop chasing those who continually walk away. You stop negotiating with individuals who repeatedly show you, through their actions, exactly where you stand. Instead, you become still, and there is tremendous power in that stillness. Most people have never encountered someone who is genuinely willing to walk away from disrespect. They are accustomed to emotional bargaining. They expect endless explanations. They anticipate dramatic reactions and desperate attempts to reconnect. When those reactions never arrive, they become confused. Silence forces reflection. Absence reveals truth. Distance exposes reality. Suddenly, people must confront the consequences of their choices without your constant presence softening the impact. This is not cruelty. It is wisdom. A gardener cannot force a plant to grow. A teacher cannot force a student to learn. Likewise, you cannot force another person to recognize your worth. Awareness must arise within them, and sometimes the only thing powerful enough to create that awareness is the experience of your absence. One of the most misunderstood Stoic virtues is silence. Modern culture encourages constant self-disclosure. People are told to broadcast every achievement, announce every plan, and defend themselves against every criticism. Yet the Stoics recognize that much of this behavior originates from insecurity rather than strength. The stronger a person becomes, the less they feel compelled to explain themselves. Consider the life of a skilled craftsman. He does not spend every day announcing what he intends to build. He works quietly. He develops mastery in private. When the work is complete, the results speak louder than any promise ever could. The same principle applies to personal growth. Many individuals sabotage their own progress by seeking validation before achievement. They reveal every goal before taking action. They announce every dream before developing discipline. They crave applause for intentions rather than results. But intentions change nothing. Action changes everything. The Stoic path encourages strategic silence, not because secrecy is inherently noble, but because silence protects energy. Every unnecessary explanation drains focus. Every argument consumes attention. Every attempt to convince skeptics steals time from meaningful work. Imagine how much stronger your life would become if all the energy spent defending yourself were redirected toward improving yourself. Imagine what would happen if every insult became motivation, if every rejection became fuel, if every setback became training. This is the essence of amor fati, the love of fate. The Stoics did not merely tolerate obstacles, they transformed them into advantages. When people doubted them, they grew stronger. When people abandoned them, they became more self-reliant. When people underestimated them, they quietly developed abilities that eventually made underestimation impossible. The obstacle became the path. This philosophy is especially important when people leave your life. Most individuals immediately interpret loss as evidence of personal failure. They assume that being left behind means they were not enough. Their confidence collapses because they have tied their self-worth to someone else's decision. But Stoicism asks a different question. What if this loss is not a punishment? What if it is preparation? What if the departure that currently feels painful is creating space for growth that would have been impossible otherwise? History is filled with men and women who discovered their greatest strength only after experiencing profound loss. Their suffering became their teacher. Their loneliness became their training ground. Their adversity became the forge that shaped their character. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must decide whether they will continue begging for appreciation or begin embodying self-respect. The difference between these two paths is enormous. One path keeps you dependent upon the reactions of others. Your mood rises when they approve of you and falls when they ignore you. Your confidence depends upon their attention. Your peace depends upon their behavior. The other path leads inward. You begin measuring yourself according to your principles rather than public opinion. You judge yourself by your integrity rather than your popularity. You focus on becoming someone worthy of respect instead of constantly seeking it. This transformation is not easy. The human desire for acceptance runs deep. We are social creatures. We naturally want connection, understanding, and belonging. Stoicism does not deny these desires. Instead, it teaches that they must never become chains. You can value relationships without becoming enslaved by them. You can love people without depending upon them for your identity. You can care deeply while remaining emotionally free. And this is where the dangerous power of letting people lose you reaches its highest form. It is not about making others regret their choices. It is not about proving them wrong. It is not about winning some invisible competition. It is about reaching a state where your value no longer fluctuates according to who stays and who leaves. Because once you reach that state, something extraordinary happens. You become impossible to manipulate. Threats lose their power. Rejection loses its sting. Criticism loses its ability to control your emotions. And for the first time, you begin living according to your own standards rather than the expectations of the crowd. That is true freedom. That is true strength. And that is a lesson most people never learn until life forces them to learn it the hard way. The people who were meant to appreciate you will appreciate you. The people who were meant to leave will leave. The people who misunderstand you will continue to misunderstand you. None of these things are fully within your control. But your character is. Your discipline is. Your response is. And when those foundations become unshakable, you no longer fear being lost by others. You fear only one thing: losing yourself. The moment you stop fearing loss, you begin to see people more clearly. Fear has a way of distorting perception. When you are terrified of being abandoned, you overlook warning signs. You excuse behavior that should never be tolerated. You create stories to justify actions that repeatedly wound you. The mind becomes a lawyer defending what the heart already knows is unhealthy. The Stoics warned against this self-deception. They believed that wisdom begins with seeing reality as it truly is rather than as we wish it to be. This is why emotional detachment is so powerful. Detachment does not mean becoming cold, indifferent, or incapable of love. It means refusing to allow emotion to blind your judgment. It means caring deeply while remaining anchored in reason. When someone repeatedly disrespects you, reason notices. When someone consistently takes without giving, reason notices. When someone values your presence only when it benefits them, reason notices. Yet fear often demands that these truths be ignored. Many people spend years trying to earn treatment they should never have had to earn in the first place. They chase respect instead of requiring it. They negotiate for basic decency as though it were a privilege rather than a standard. A Stoic refuses to live this way. He understands that self-respect begins where self-negotiation ends. The Roman philosopher Seneca observed that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Few statements explain unhealthy attachment more accurately. People torture themselves with endless questions. What if they leave? What if they forget me? What if I never find someone else? What if I end up alone? Meanwhile, the present moment slips away. Life is consumed by fears that may never materialize. Even worse, those fears often become self-fulfilling. Desperation drives people to cling tighter. Clinging creates pressure. Pressure creates distance. Distance creates the very loss they feared from the beginning. Freedom emerges when you stop attempting to control outcomes. You show up honestly. You act with integrity. You give your best. Then you release the result. This principle applies not only to relationships but to every area of life. Many people are trapped because they are terrified of losing a job, losing status, losing comfort, losing certainty, or losing the image they have built around themselves. As a result, they remain stuck. They postpone dreams. They silence their ambitions. They ignore opportunities. They choose familiarity over growth. But growth almost always requires loss. The seed must lose its current form before it becomes a tree. The athlete must lose comfort before gaining strength. The student must lose ignorance before gaining wisdom. Transformation demands sacrifice. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself that change is the nature of existence itself. Nothing remains fixed. Seasons change. Empires rise and fall. Bodies age. Relationships evolve. Entire generations appear and disappear. To resist change is to resist reality. To embrace change is to cooperate with nature. When people lose you, they may eventually realize what they had, or they may not. The Stoic remains at peace either way. Why? Because his purpose was never to control another person's perception. His purpose was to live honorably. There is immense liberation in this mindset. Imagine waking up tomorrow completely unconcerned with whether others recognize your value. Imagine focusing all your energy on developing wisdom, discipline, courage, and justice. Imagine becoming so invested in your own growth that external validation becomes a pleasant bonus rather than a necessity. This is the quiet confidence that the Stoics cultivated. It is not arrogance. Arrogance requires an audience. True confidence does not. True confidence is built in solitude. It grows during difficult mornings when no one is watching. It develops through disciplined action when motivation disappears. It strengthens each time you choose principle over convenience. Eventually, your sense of worth becomes internal rather than external. At that point, losing people no longer feels like losing yourself. You recognize that what is truly yours cannot be taken away. Your character remains. Your wisdom remains. Your discipline remains. Your ability to begin again remains. One of the greatest ironies of human nature is that people often become most attractive when they stop seeking attention. The person desperately trying to impress others appears uncertain. The person constantly demanding recognition appears dependent. The person endlessly explaining themselves appears unconvinced. But the individual who is focused on purpose radiates a different energy. Their attention is directed inward. Their standards are self-imposed. Their actions are aligned with their values. Such people do not need to announce their strength because strength reveals itself naturally. The Stoics understood this paradox. When you stop chasing approval, you often gain respect. When you stop demanding loyalty, genuine loyalty becomes easier to identify. When you stop forcing connections, authentic relationships emerge. This happens because truth reveals itself when pressure disappears. People show who they really are when they are free to choose. Some will stay, some will leave. Some will surprise you, some will disappoint you. All of these outcomes contain valuable information. Every departure teaches a lesson. Every disappointment reveals a hidden expectation. Every betrayal exposes a misplaced trust. Every ending creates an opportunity to become wiser. The average person interprets these experiences as reasons for bitterness. The Stoic interprets them as opportunities for refinement. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" he asks, "What can this teach me?" Instead of becoming resentful, he becomes observant. Instead of becoming weaker, he becomes stronger. This perspective transforms pain into progress. It turns wounds into wisdom. It converts adversity into advantage. And perhaps most importantly, it prevents other people from determining the course of your life. No individual possesses that authority unless you surrender it. The world may influence you. People may challenge you. Circumstances may test you. But your character remains your responsibility. That responsibility is both a burden and a gift. It is the burden of self-mastery. It is the gift of freedom. So if someone chooses to walk away from your life, let them. If someone consistently fails to recognize your worth, let them. If someone repeatedly mistakes your kindness for weakness, let them. Not because you are indifferent, not because you are heartless, but because your peace is too valuable to be sacrificed upon the altar of someone else's approval. The Stoics believe that a person should spend far less time managing impressions and far more time managing character. Character is what remains when applause fades. Character is what remains when criticism arrives. Character is what remains when everyone else leaves. And in the end, character is the only possession that truly belongs to you. The dangerous power of letting people lose you is not that they may eventually regret it. The real power is that you stop regretting yourself. You stop abandoning your values to secure acceptance. You stop shrinking to fit inside other people's expectations. You stop measuring your worth through the unstable opinions of the crowd. Instead, you stand firmly upon the foundation of your own principles. You become calm in situations that once caused panic. You become patient in situations that once caused desperation. You become strong in situations that once revealed weakness. And from that strength emerges a profound realization. The people who truly belong in your life will not require you to betray yourself in order to keep them. The right relationships strengthen your character rather than diminish it. The right friendships respect your boundaries rather than punish them. The right people appreciate your presence without demanding your surrender. Everything else is merely a lesson in standards, a lesson in wisdom, a lesson in self-respect. So continue your journey. Continue building yourself. Continue mastering your mind. Continue becoming the kind of person whose peace cannot be purchased, whose dignity cannot be negotiated, and whose purpose cannot be shaken. And if some people lose you along the way, let them. Because the moment you stop fearing loss is the moment you finally discover your freedom.